Fresh update from Burkina Faso. Just coming in. Ibrahim Traoré arrests French spy. The rest of the story is unbelievable. He came with a smile and a camera. He declared that he was here to tell the story of Africa. But what no one knew was that he was not making a documentary. He was mapping secrets. He was not looking for the truth either. We all forget sometimes that this is an old technique that doesn't necessarily works today. He was hunting targets. It all started inconspicuously. A fair-skinned man with clean shoes, a Frenchman, landed at the Ouagadougou International Airport with a tourist visa and a press badge hanging on his shirt. That was already an eye-opener. He said that he was an independent journalist who understood the difficulties of security and shared access to Burkina Faso's local ways of communicating with the world. He smiled, spoke French fluently, and claimed to admire the courage of President Ibrahim Traoré. "It is rare to see young African leaders who stand up to the West," he said, forgetting that this was already a red flag. Though some people believed it, he showed himself politely offering water to taxi drivers, handing out pens to school children. He bought tea at village markets and took pictures of sunsets, roads, and cattle. But behind the lens of his camera, he was filming something else. For years and weeks, the journalist went to places where most of his colleagues did not go. He lived near military camps, walked near railway tracks, and asked local guards about transport routes and mining expeditions. When a soldier joked, "You ask more questions than our own commander," the man would smile and add, "That's how journalists are trained." At night, he slept in a fully furnished new house on the outskirts of the city. No one has ever seen him drinking or partying. But we noticed something strange. He made international calls every night without ever using a local SIM card. He did not publish any articles on the internet, did not tag anyone on social networks. He claimed that everything would appear in a special European report. However, not a single article, not a single report was ever published in France. At first, the locals thought he was just eccentric. But one evening, when we saw him near the forbidden radio tower, everything took a different turn. Burkina Faso intelligence services began to watch him, invisibly. They followed his movements, cloned his SIM card without touching his phone, recorded his emails, his text messages, and his voicemails. What they discovered had nothing to do with journalism. It was with espionage. When President Traoré himself saw the evidence, he did not order his arrest right away. He did something smarter. He invited the spy to ask questions directly in front of cameras aimed at the country. A press conference was announced at Ouagadougou, organized by the Office of the Presidency. But, contrary to the usual tradition, there is no freedom of the press or foreign journalists, nor prepared questions. Only a few journalists carefully selected for that particular event. And, at the last minute, a name was added to the guest list, Mr. Julien Morel, a freelance journalist from France. He arrived alone, wearing brown pants, a white shirt, and the same press release badge he had displayed at the airport a few weeks ago. No tripod, no cameraman, just her bag over his shoulder, his notebook, and a slight smile on his face. He had no idea what awaited him. When he entered the enclosure, he entertained himself guarding them as if he were at home. "I'm here for a press briefing with the president," he announced with a flourish smile and a confident tone. The soldier nodded and gestured in the direction, but his gaze was unusually attentive. Inside, the room was silent, perhaps too much so. The cameras were already rolling. The microphone was raised to a seat in the center. There were only 6 chairs for journalists, lined up in a semicircle. Julien sat down, opened his notebook, and swept the room with a glance. No one smiled at him. No one greeted him. He was acting cold, yet didn't pay attention. Perhaps the other journalists were just nervous about the idea of having a European journalist among them. Then the door opened. President Ibrahim Traoré entered calmly, his back straight, not in a suit, but in his military attire as usual. He didn't look tired, he didn't look stressed. He looked ready. Julian stood up and held out his hand. "Mr. President, it's an honor. I was eager to meet you." Traoré shook his hand firmly and replied, "You've asked a lot of questions about us, Morel. Today, I'll answer them." Julian blinked. Was it a trap? He smiled nervously, trying to seem relaxed. Of course, that's what interviews are for. But this was no ordinary interview because Ibrahim Traoré had not invited a journalist. He had invited a spy. And the next few minutes would reveal just how deep the betrayal went. The questions began. The red light of the camera flickered gently. 6 journalists sat motionless. An open notebook, hands motionless. In the center, President Ibrahim Traoré stood straight, calm, without a note. Opposite him, Julian Morel adjusted his collar. He was used to conducting interviews, but this time something was different. Traoré did not smile. He did not present any political statement. He remarked, "Mr. Morel, you have been in our country for 23 days, right?" "Yes, Sir President," Julian replied, raising his voice. "I gathered stories, filmed locals, tried to understand what." Julian hesitated. "The challenges you people are facing. Security. Infrastructure, foreign affairs." Traoré shouted from the side of the soldier, stepped forward, holding a sealed file. "That you have visited 9 adjacent military zones," pursued Traoré. "You recorded 3 strategic locations disguised as interviews with guards." Juliana's eyes were wide opened. The room grew colder. "I'm a journalist," he said. "That's what we do. We go where the stories are." Traoré approached. "Is it also normal for journalists to send encrypted emails at 2 a.m. in the morning to servers registered in Abidjan?" One of the other journalists turned his head in shock. The soldier opened the file and holds a photo. Julian at night opened a laptop with encrypted messages on the screen. Then, on another photo, Julian stands in front of the military tower with radio in his hand. And other screenshots of messages sent to a person known to intelligence services from Burkina Faso, a French military contractor working under diplomatic cover in West Africa. Julian's face lost color. "Can I explain, please?" "Do it," Traoré said. But Julian had no words. He was no longer under the pressure of the question. He was the subject investigation. Traoré looked at the cameras. "This man says he understands our people, but in reality, he has come to record our weak points, to record our movements, and to send our secrets to a stranger. He has not come to tell our story, but to write his own." And then Traoré declared, leaving the people to decide whether he is talking about journalism or treason. The silence in the room became louder than thunder. Julian Morel had come to condemn Africa, but it was now Africa that condemned him and his bosses. Julian's hand trembled as he grabbed his bag. The room had always been silent. The cameras were still running, but the air had changed. What had begun as a simple press conference had become something else. A public trial, a silent liquidation, and he was the target. "Mr. Morel," calmly said President Traoré, "do you deny these photographs, its messages, its recordings?" Julian opened his mouth but said nothing. He was sweating not because of the heat, but because of the plan that he had fallen into the water. A second soldier entered with a black laptop. It was Julian's, confiscated the day before without his knowledge. President Traoré nodded. The screen was on. "Let us show you something," he told the room. A spotlight illuminated the wall. A real-time map of Burkina Faso appeared, with pins on oil roads, mine locations, and 2 military depots without identification marks. Found in a folder marked Exam. Cleanliness in the coat department, Outore. Bed rest was justified in the room. Julian shook his head slowly. "I didn't want to. These weren't just notes. I wasn't sending an explanation." President Traoré interrupted him. He picked up a piece of paper with a printed email. The target's movement is predictable. The palace's security is weak near Westgate and could be monitored for future actions. Julien's face became pale. No, that's not it. That's not true. It was sent from your encrypted email at 2:17 a.m. from the reservoir in Zone 3. The evidence is not falsified, Mr. Morel. We have them gather. Local journalists looked on in disbelief. Some prayers were whispered. Others were watched by the only white man in the room, the one who once walked with confidence. Trembling now, his lies unraveling thread by thread. He had come here with a plan, but he had underestimated the country. He had underestimated our intelligence, and above all, he had underestimated the man standing before him. President Traoré slowly turned to the microphone. He was not angry. He did not shout. He looked straight at the camera and said, "This is what he is sending us. Not help, not excuses, but spies with cameras who pretend to be journalists. He thinks we will smile and keep quiet." But this time, he left. Then he turned to Julien one last time. "You came for the stories. Now you are the story." And with a sharp gesture, Traoré gave the order to escort him out. Two guards stepped forward. Julien Morel did not resist either. He simply bowed his head and walked away, the same way he had come to enter. Only this time, the machine was empty. The cameras were full. The chairs were folded. But the confrontation between the president, Ibrahim Traoré, and Julien Morel had already left the room. He was everywhere now. The first video appeared on social media just 1 hour after the incident. We saw Traoré calmly ask, "Do you call this journalism or treason?" Then the images, the laptop screen, the military ID cards, the intercepted emails, and finally the white Frenchman who left the room in silence, surrounded by two guards. The internet exploded. In Burkina Faso, people gathered in cafes and homes to watch the images over and over again. The man shouted. He had caught a spy on live television. A grandmother in a village near Kamurmura. "We have been waiting for a long time. We have not seen the president standing like this." Across West Africa, the video is spreading like wildfire. TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook. Everywhere, people would start the opposite scenario. They came to study us, but they were studied. This is how you lead them with facts, not with fear. In Sagala, students painted a mural with Traoré's words. "Africa has eyes now." In Ghana, a tweet went viral saying, "He did not raise his voice, but he raised the level." However, the French reaction was different. The Minister of Foreign Affairs issued a cold statement. "We are analyzing the situation and expect fair treatment for all citizens." But they know nothing about the evidence, nothing visible, immunity or connection with Abidjan. Meanwhile, in Burkina Faso, Julien Morel was in good condition of official arrest. Not because he was a journalist, but because of unauthorized breach of national security. He was transferred to a secure facility outside their capital. But it was no longer about him alone. It was about every microphone used to collect secrets from every handshake with the condition hidden, every photo taken with smiling faces and double meanings. President Traoré no longer made any speeches. There was no need for it. The world had already heard what he said in this room. You came for the story. Now it is you who tell the story. As the video went viral, one thing became clear throughout Africa. It wasn't just about catching a spy, it was about confronting them all. All the videos were uploaded on the internet before the press room was empty. It all started with a 40-second highlight clip. President Ibrahim Traoré stands calmly in front of the camera and said, "You have come for history. Now you are history." Then the guards take Julien Morel. The so-called French journalist silently left the room. No screams, no drama, just the truth. That's all it took. Even in the evening, the video had already reached millions of people. On TikTok, People in Ghana, Nigeria, South Africa, and Mali reposted it with captions like, "Defend your country," where it exposes itself without touching it. Africa is waking up in Burkina Faso. The shops stopped playing music. Instead, they played a press conference. Young people gathered on the corners and played the video on their phone. Old men nodded silently, standing in front of their radio. And a woman in the market said, "Before they came with guns, now they come with cameras." On television, it was even stronger. The national news clip was played over and over again. Photos of Julien outside the military zones, a laptop containing maps of sensitive areas, an email from a contact in Abidjan called the entry point to the palace. Poor visibility. No one could deny it, not even the French government. But they tried anyway. In Paris, they issued a brief statement. "We will monitor the situation and ensure that our citizens are treated fairly." But they have not mentioned the evidence. They do not have it. They did not even try to explain it because they could not. Meanwhile, in West Africa, the feeling was different. It was not just about catching the spy. It was a question of finally seeing the trap and cracking it. Across the border, people shared the same message quite often. Julien Morel, the man who came with the smile and the camera, was now held in the house. No interviews, no press, no interviews, no public. He asked to speak to a lawyer from the French embassy. But Traoré has publicly responded, "We have a more important matter to resolve, and it belongs to Africa." Thus, the man who once came to betray another was now the one who found himself in full view of the whole world. The press conference was over. Julien Morel will not to leave the country, but will remain under military detention until his trial. The whole world saw what happened. The video went viral on the continent. But President Ibrahim Traoré was silent for 3 days. He did not say a single word to the press. He did not need to. The test spoke for itself. On the 4th day, he left the palace, not to stand behind the platform, nor to talk to foreign journalists, but to address his people. The setting was simple, a schoolyard. The children were sitting on the ground. Behind were farmers, traders, drivers, students, soldiers. They all came. No one had a script. No one gave him any paper or script. He stood under the sun and said, "It has been observed for years, not to help us, but also to control our words, our designs, our dreams. They sent a man with a camera, but it wasn't a camera. It was a gun pointed at our future." He looked around and continued. The man said he was a journalist, but his memory card contained more cards than interviews, more location information than quotes, more targets than truths. He had not come to tell our story. He had come to steal it. The people remained silent. Some nodded. Some cried. Then he said something that would resonate throughout Africa. Who would be the next man to come with a smile, tender words, and sharp threads hidden in his bag? Don't confuse our silence with blindness. We see you now. That line has become a movement on the walls of Ouagadougou. We see you now in TikTok videos, in Ghana and Nigeria. We see you now. And in the university residences in Dar es Salaam. We will see you now. No arrests have been made, except for Julien. No embassy has been attacked. There was no chaos. Just a silent message delivered with silent fire. You taught us to hold the camera. Now we know how to fight it back. It's all over. Not a shot, not a scream. Just one man shouting at his own game, and the continent returned to its power. Because this time, Africa was not silent. Thank you for watching, and please, do not forget to like and subscribe for more updates. It's time for Africa.